So I am doing this suggestion for a buddy of mine. I saw this movie in its entirety about 4 years ago, I would say. It was one I've always wanted to see, but I've never really given any attention to. When you hear the name Jason Voorhees, you instantly think of Friday the 13th from 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham. Rip into a new chilling, uncut edition of Friday the 13th, with the addition of unrated footage and insightful special features. Plunge deeper into the film that spawned 11 sequels and the generous and unstoppable bad guy, Jason Voorhees. A new owner and several young counselors gathered to reopen Camp Crystal Lake, where a young boy drowned and several vicious murders occurred years earlier. They have ignored the locals' warnings about the place that has a death curse, and one by one they find out how unlucky Friday the 13th can be as they stalked by a violent killer. This movie I liked. I like the atmosphere, and I like just how remote it is. It's like, just imagine that you're on a campground, and it's like maybe 6 of you that are just trying to reopen this place, and you just look, and you're wondering like you're being eliminated one by one. Just the danger, the intensity, the seclusion. Ooh, this movie is just full of good atmosphere. What I liked about it is it takes place in the dark time, but you can see what's going on. That's what I like. Now when everything is so dang muddy that you can't see what's going on. But here, the darkness works this movie's advantage. This movie, in my opinion, laid the groundwork for a lot of tropes and conventions to come. One, having the campground going on. Two, having the kind of stupid victims in a horror movie that makes some impossibly dumb decisions where you're just thinking, what are you thinking? 3, the killer that is unseen. Obviously, we know who it is. We know the what's the word? The relationship between Pamela Voorhees and Jason Voorhees, but we don't know anything about that. At least you would think that there would be some explanation, but nope, you're truly left in the dark. And it works so well. It's the guessing. It's the wondering of who will survive and who will not. Because, with these 6 counselors, it's like, do you care about them? Not particularly. Maybe Alice, as Arienne King, who portrays her, probably has the best performance of, actually trying to prevent the murderer from entering, barricading the door and things like that. At least that, I'll give her credit. She's the best, because all the other ones, well, they pretty much just get axed, like, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes in. So you just don't care about them. It's like, obviously in the first half, you have them all. It's like you have this one chef who's supposedly going to come named Annie, and she gets eliminated by Pamela Voorhees and by the Voorhees family, pretty much. So it's like, done just like that. It's the billings in this movie are, they're fine. It's like usually like right across the throat, or having some rope, or even one guy getting pierced by an arrow. Yikes. That was a little disturbing. And, of course you have to have the lovemaking scenes. It's like, it's what it is. It's like a bunch of people in their early 20s with the hormones that are running wild, and obviously, I don't know why. It's like one of the conventions in horror movies is that the people who engage in coitus are going to get eliminated earlier on, but the virgin remains towards the end. Why that one? I don't know the complete history of horror movie tropes, but I guess you could say it was probably popularized to a point by this movie, because, when Jason was swimming in, what was that, 1956. He was drowning, and none of the counselors came to his aid because they were all engaging in coitus, and ultimately he drowned. So it's like, despite the fact they were supposed to, I don't know, pay attention to like a 10-year-old or whatever, they were just off busy in the bushes, just engaging, and it's like, no, you don't do that. And ultimately, that could result in lawsuits and stuff. So ultimately, it's the ultimately also what happens when you take revenge too far is when the mother comes in, dressed like she's a 1950s housewife, and starts taking revenge. It turns out she was doing most of the killings going around, and we get a rather I like the ensuing battle between the two. This is a woman who wants revenge, and she has an axe, she has a knife. She is willing to do whatever just to get her revenge. And she does she puts, the trope is known as final girl, of who will stay the longest alive. And so it's the final girl versus the villainess, and it's pretty good. I liked it. I like how they get into some battles and stuff like that. It's like there's some clever stuff. There's a frying pan, there's a knife, there's her trying to chop her way through the door, pre The Shining, but post the Phantom Carriage. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, this is a 1980s slasher movie, so you know exactly what you're getting. This movie laid the groundwork for it, and I'm thinking yes. It also has good music too. I like the music in this. I think that having the kill, kind of like that repeating, which adds to the creepiness of the movie. Just having this disembodied voice, as you don't know where it's coming from. Especially earlier when we hear "Help me, please." Jason, who is wanting to be rescued by the counselors, but ultimately doesn't. He's using his own voice to project and trying to lure these counselors to their doom as a way of getting revenge, which is pretty scary when you're going around in the middle of the freaking night and you're thinking about it. And it just gives you the chills, but in a good way. It's like, yeah, the atmosphere of this movie, with everything being dark and only having minimal light. I mean, even a freaking generator gets cut off. It just feels good. It feels tense and scary. What some people may not like about this, well, there's not too many inventive kills. It's like we get to see one or two people get eliminated, but most of the times we just see their bodies, which would be very startling. But the kills are just straightforward. The rules of the slashers hadn't really been defined yet, so we get to see grisly images, but it just feels kinda. They just happened. There's not too much imagination, in my opinion. Maybe if we got to see Pamela Voorhees, like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes in, that way her presence wouldn't feel as like rushed or unexpected in the last, I don't know, what was that, 20 minutes or something like that. I think that they could have introduced her a little bit more in order to give us a red herring of what's going on. That's what I think would have helped. Obviously you have the town crazy named Ralph who's saying it's like, this place is doomed, get away from here, and going on about like what God would do or something like that. It's like, you're gonna have that, and maybe, I don't know, whatever, I'm not even worried about that. But here, it's like, you're here to watch this movie, you're gonna have a good time with it. Obviously the star of the show is herself, Betsy Palmer. She's a she's a Broadway actor, so she brings a little bit of finesse and a little bit of way how to manipulate, our heroine and stuff like that. She was actually on the game show I've Got a Secret, so she's been definitely having experience and bringing some gravitas to it. For a long time, she disliked the movie, saying that she was in desperate need for a car. She called the script a POS, but over time warmed to it because, like, hey, it keeps probably keeps her name alive, so that's pretty cool. The camp itself is still in operation today. They have like a whole wall dedicated to like props and photos and stuff like that. And actually, as you know, Tom Savini and all the actors and actresses were there. Lou Reed was actually on a nearby farm that he owned, so he came over, got to see what's going on, and all the stars there got to see him perform for free. So that must have been really darn cool to see. Yeah. So yeah. Ultimately, how do I feel about this movie? Still holds up mostly well. It's like some of the rules haven't been laid down yet, so the kills kind of feel a little not as imaginative, so I kind of do have to dock it for that. And it would have been nice to have seen Mrs. Voorhees, but yeah. If I were to rate this 1 to 4 stars, which I may implement 3 out of 4 stars, it's highly recommended that you watch Friday the 13th.